All right, we're back in DOLAN'S Dugout for another week, trying to drum up some content, and we've got some. We definitely have some. We're not scrambling for content. It is the content. Steve Dolan, your host, Adam Paul joining us as our guest again this week. Going to try not to talk too much about COVID, but it's affecting all of our lives, and pretty much everything we talk about is just rescheduling, what's going to happen, what we're going to do, what we're doing, what we've been doing, and maybe we'll check in with Adam Paul's top 10 Mexican food restaurants in the East County. Steve, how you doing, brother?
Hi, doing well, Ramon. Hope you and Adam are doing well. I want to, again, thank everybody for joining us tonight. If I could throw out a topic on the table we definitely want to talk about. Of course, this Friday, April 3rd, the 10 CIF commissioners in California will decide the fate of California high school sports for the rest of the school year. I'm just gonna, if it's okay, I'll throw my opinion out first. I mean, as you know, the shelter in place basically goes till the end of April, which means the earliest they could start would be May 1st. But obviously, you're not going to start on May 1st because you'd have to have practices all. Sadly, I hate to say it, but if I was a betting man, and sometimes I am, my bet would be that sadly, I think the high school sports are over for the spring. How about you, Ramon and Adam? What's your feeling on that?
Go ahead, Adam.
No, I was just saying, I'm not entirely optimistic. They're, like you said, they're meeting April the 3rd. The Grossmont school districts, I know they're going to be doing the online schooling starting on the 20th of April. Teachers will go for training, I guess, starting the 7th of April until about the 17th or 18th, I guess. Then they'll do the online thing until that they get the okay to go back to school. I mean, it's, like you said, President Trump pushing back the orders until April the 30th. I was reading, I think it was Eric Stonheim of the LA Times reported that Stonheimer reported that the Arizona schools canceled spring sports. So we'll see.
Yeah, no surprise, obviously.
Yeah, Steve, from what I would expect, it's always darkest before the dawn, and May could be our dawn, hopefully, but this is going to be sadly a month that we'll remember for all of our lives and all of our children's lives and their children's lives. So we're about to enter the most important phase of everything that we're all focused on doing right now, and we just got to stay focused and listen to what the health departments are saying. The people that really maybe know those scientific curves, all those models that we're just guessing at. I mean, looks like we're just getting started. I mean, I'm not going to put any analogies on it, but I mean, it's the top of the first inning, and this is going to take for the rest of the year for sure. I'm talking about the rest of the school year. April is going to be a terrible, terrible time. May will probably be not as terrible, but just the economic factors involved too, not to mention the loss of life that we'll surely see. I'm so sad right now to put it in perspective like this, but let's focus and getting together. Hopefully get a football season going by September, guys, and all the other sports will follow suit.
I don't know. I mean, I got confirmation the other day that even if they okayed spring sports, Cathedral Catholic shut down all their spring sports.
Yeah.
I got that confirmed by Braden Sopranet the other night when I texted him. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with that.
I agree, Adam. I think, as I say, when the commissioners meet Friday, I'd be shocked if the spring sports are not canceled for the rest of the school year. I mean, they could keep pushing it back, but like I said, let's face it, the earliest you can start would be May 1st, and teams aren't going to be ready then. It's just, I mean, I think Cathedral's just ahead of the curve. I don't think we're going to see any more spring sports. And as you know, we're already not going to see any more spring sports in colleges, in the NCAA, because one thing I wanted to throw on the table is that you all know today date that the NCAA has approved. If you were going to be let's say you're going to be a senior baseball player at San Diego State this year, you can come back next year. But of course, there are ramifications. I mean, one of the ramifications is, let's say, Adam, that I'm a senior at San Diego State, and I've got a half scholarship in baseball, but you've been promised a half scholarship for baseball out of an East County high school next year. Well, they got to figure out how to balance that out, because what's going to happen with the seniors now, what I'm reading is, like, let's say again, if I'm the senior and I'm promised a 50% scholarship for baseball next year, I may have to give up part of it for the freshmen coming in. So there's really going to be a difficult balance. And I know there's going to be a lot of disagreements and this and that, but what people have to understand is why it's this way. I mean, nobody wants it this way, but you know what? This is the way it is. If I could, one more thing, I'll let you guys talk. It's really like I was talking to a buddy of mine in Dallas the other day. This has kind of become the new normal. And when we get back to normal, what will normal be? Will normal ever be what it was before? I don't know.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, especially like you said, with scholarships and numbers and stuff. And according to what I was reading, it's up to each individual institution. So, I mean, the NC2A just basically said, okay, here's what you can do. Here's what we're allowing. You guys figure it out, basically.
Yeah, it's kind of like, for lack of better terms, it's kind of like the NCAA is the federal government, and now they're handing it over to the states, which is the way it's kind of working in government a lot. It's kind of like you say, it's up to everybody, and it's going to be different at different institutions too. Obviously, schools like San Diego State, USD or UCSD, it's going to hurt them a lot more. The schools that don't have the $43 million a year that the SEC schools get, football, their football money from TV. I mean, yeah, it's funny too, because like in basketball, we all talk about how San Diego State only had 2 losses all year. What a great basketball season. But you know what? UCSD in Division II, they only had 1 loss all year. And they were looking at them and Point Loma Nazarene. Those schools, those 3 San Diego schools all had a chance of going a long way in their respective college basketball tournaments.
UCSD was only one win away from the championship game.
Yeah. Exactly.
Really an underreported story, Adam, no doubt about it. UP did a great job chronicling them once they started to roll into those games, but just wish they would have a little bit more. And it's obviously going to grow. I mean, UCSD is going to get a lot more coverage moving forward. But even the Point Loma story last year was kind of undertold, I thought. They did a great job. And, if you followed the team, it was certainly an exciting run and underrated as far as all the basketball is concerned. You talk about some of those scholarships, Steve. You might know that a talented freshman from Santa Clara University back in the number of years ago, a left-handed pitcher ended up being the current governor of California, Gavin Newsom.
Yeah,
did a great job leading the state.
Yeah. You never know what's going to happen. I mean, you had an actor become a president, an apprentice guy from TV become a president. You just never know. But it's interesting, though, because, again, there's just so much unknown out there in sports. And, again, in the colleges, I thought it was interesting, if I could, y'all heard Herbie, Kirk Herbstreit from ESPN last week predicting there would not be a college football season. I know he's taken a lot of heat from that. And I get it, because we want to be optimistic, not pessimistic, but there's a chance of that. That being said, I want to throw something by you guys. This is something, I mean, we're all, we got to do something all day. I've been listening a lot to 97.3 the Fantasy Sports Radio, which does a good job in the high schools. But I thought it was interesting yesterday, Mike Florio, who does the NFL, does a great job. He was talking about how the NFL has so much TV money, and this is just a what if, and I get it. I don't think it's going to happen, but what if the NFL said, we don't want to lose those billions of dollars in TV, so what we're going to do, we're going to move our whole operation in the middle of nowhere where there's no coronavirus. We're going to build stadiums, practice facilities and all, and just bring all the teams out there. We're away from the danger and play our games and get on TV, because, again, it's all about TV money in the NFL. And I get it, what he's saying is probably a little far-fetched, but really these leagues now are looking at whatever they can do. You've heard the NBA talk about maybe everybody plays in Vegas now that Vegas is empty. So what do you guys think of ideas like that?
We have to do something. I mean, you have to be an out-of-box thinker. I mean, they're talking, Colin Cowherd is talking to Bob Costas today. about shortening the baseball season.
Mhm.
You know, in order to get get back into the swing of things. Prominence. I don't know. You have to look at all the scenarios.
Yeah, it could be weird. You look at what you did as a kid, guys. You'd look back at you'd look at the list of world champions, right, in a particular sport. Yeah. Kind of memorized them all from back in the 50s and 60s, and where it's going to come to a point. Could we actually see it? You'll see list of NBA champions. It'll say 2019, 2020, no champion in the NHL, say, and NBA might just list no champion there.
Yeah, I mean, there's a good chance of that happening. Hey, Ramon, one thing I think that's got to be players got to be real careful about now too. I know a week ago MLB, the union, and Major League Baseball itself agreed on several different things going forward, like that they would get service time for the whole year, even if they don't play a season, prorated salaries. I was kind of disappointed today though watching ESPN because Trevor Bauer of the Reds, the pitcher, kind of came out and started. It kind of sounded like he was complaining about, we're not going to get as much money now and this and that. They've got to be real careful. A lot of people are going on unemployment right now. A lot of people are hurting. And if you're a millionaire or multimillionaire and you're griping about you're not going to get quite as many millions next year, be careful because there's a lot of people out there that just don't want to hear that now. I mean, again, a lot of people out of work. I mean, again, myself, doing stats for Fox Sports San Diego, which is now actually under Sinclair. We got a really nice letter from Sinclair today at all about what's going on with them. But, I mean, I can't say a whole lot because it's kind of inside stuff. But on the other hand, again, not so much the TV people, but the players and all, be careful. Or Floyd, Mayweather going on TV, going on Instagram with Antonio Brown with a bunch of money and saying, you guys should pay this guy. He's the best receiver. Forget about what he does off the field. I'm sorry, it's hard to forget about what he does off the field when he's mistreating women. So these guys have to be really careful because they live in a bubble, but their bubble's going to burst if they don't watch what they say and do, especially now with so many people hurting.
Well, I'd like to just take the other end of the spectrum a little bit on that. Athletes are doing some incredible things too, Steve.
Sure.
You look at some of the money donated by athletes so far. And one thing that does concern me about Drew Brees, I think is a great example.
Oh, my gosh, $5 million.
Look at Zion Williams.
What's going to happen at the gate? We've talked about on the previous show or two, once the pandemic came along and talked about, when we rush back to the stadiums, but are we going to now? Are we getting a little bit creeped out that even if there's some type of expedited thing where we are able to get back out for football season? Who's going to go to a game right now? Who's going to go to a game in September in the Meadowlands? Okay. I mean, you're going to have a lot of people with cold feet at that time of the year, and I'm not talking about the weather. I mean, I wonder how gates will be affected. I think, Adam, what you might have mentioned that you thought maybe a slow sports rollout could happen where you'd see kind of like when they ramped it down and some played in empty stadiums, they might open up in empty stadiums and then allow fans into games. I don't know how they'll do that, and that's why sports has taken such a backseat in this whole situation. It's been no skin off of my back. I mean, we're trying to do our part, but it's part of the backstory because sports was the first high-profile thing that really is kind of shut down.
Well, I liked, you were going back to the out-of-box thinking there, Steve. Scott Boras mentioned doing with the World Series like what they do for the Super Bowl and take it on the road.
Yeah.
A whole week, have parties and, get-togethers and things like that, and then have it in a warm climate, deal like a Miami or a San Diego or where somewhere like that. I thought that was an interesting idea, and that got some traction. I heard listening to some of the interviews.
Yeah, and you know what? It's interesting you say that, Adam, because Boris, his idea is great. And that's something that had been talked about with Major League Baseball playing on a neutral site. Maybe that's the only way we'll get the World Series here this year because we are a warm weather city. But one thing about Major League Baseball, too, obviously they want to get up and go, because, again, with them, there's TV money involved, too, a lot of TV money. They say that I believe that what teams generate at the ballpark is 30 to 40% of what they bring in. Normal games about $1 million, maybe $1.5 million for every game that's hosted. But what you got to remember, you say, well, they lose that 30 to 40%, that $1 million a game without people there. But on the other hand, you get the TV money, and once people start seeing it on TV again, they're going to start buying the concessions that they'd be buying if they were at the games anyway. They're not going to be buying the hot dogs, the souvenirs, all that. That type of stuff, the concessions. But they will, pick up the jersey sales and all that. So again, if you're Major League Baseball or again the NFL playing out on an island, whatever you have to do to get on TV, like you say, they're going to come up with creative ways. But again, only as soon as it's as safe as possible, because as long as there's shelter in place, it ain't going to happen. But once it's over, they're going to scramble, just like the MLF, Major League Soccer now. It says now they're going to start their season May 10th, and they're going to play their 34-game schedule. That's just the we'll see.
And then you have a league like the Premier League in Europe. Every team taking pay cuts. What's his name? The highest. I'm sorry.
Messi.
Yeah, is taking a huge pay cut so that teams can be funded and stuff, and players can get paid, and also workers and stuff. I was reading that kind of today on ESPN. I thought that was an interesting deal right there. And of course, you mentioned Drew Brees, guys like Zion Williams. Giving a couple $100,000 for the workers in New Orleans for the smoothie center place. And then you had the I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce his name, but the Greek freak of Milwaukee, Giannis, donating money. The Dallas Mavericks owner, donating money. I mean, there are the people that are, the sports guys that are complaining about the pay, but then there are like you said, Moni, there are the guys who actually get it, and they know who pays the bills.
Yeah, I've kind of looked at some of these stadiums really as giant television studios anyways, but there's certainly the element. I mean, when you have a crowd, I'm thinking of the game, those Tuesday night games when you're watching just some game and it's the 8th inning in Anaheim, and the crowd's there, but they're not making a whole lot of noise. But how are you going to play games in some of these cities right now that are just being overwhelmed by coronavirus? So that's the timetable. I mean, really, if it's just I keep bringing this back to how awful this is going to be, but April is going to be such a weighted load on everybody's shoulders. And to try to fire something up in May where, yes, maybe if we can believe some models that after the biggest spike is that big drop, still you're looking at May and June and even into July as you're trying to, fix different things with the rollouts in communities that have been spared. Last week I mentioned how I thought how lucky we were in San Diego. And, it's funny because you look at the numbers and to a certain aspect, we are still lucky in this community, this large community of San Diego, even though the last, week is, 50 going in for the having a positive test, 50 more, 34 yesterday. But now it's starting to be one of the larger sites that hasn't really been hit bad, but we're starting to get hit a little bit, and it's going to continue to get bad here. So I don't want to roll on with the COVID stuff, but I'm glad everybody's got contingency plans. I'll be interested to see what CIF and all the commissioners do, but this is a daily plan every day. My emotions go from high to low in a span of 3 hours right now.
Yeah, and it's funny, Moni, I know I talked to you and Adam before the show about this. It is funny because now we all have more time on our hands than ever. Listen to CBS Sports Radio the last couple of days. I know, again, Mike Florio from the NFL yesterday. I've heard John Paul Morosi on radio yesterday and today. They're staying on shows 25 or 30 minutes, and these are guys normally you get for 5 or 10 minutes because they're so busy. Like yesterday when they're talking to JP Morosi, they said something towards the end of the show, well, thanks so much for your time, but we really appreciate it. He says, hey, I've got all the time I need now. So people have a lot more time to do. And I mean, I think one thing I've learned personally, things I used to try to get through in a hurry and all that because I got to get on this and that. It's kind of like the old song, slow down, you move too fast, going to make the morning last, you know?
Well, that's why I'm here. I mean, I'm trying to get you guys to steer me clear of, you know, wall-to-wall COVID talk. I mean, I actually have stayed away for the most part from the standard sports cycle, the news cycle in sports, because I just go for COVID. But, you know, every day I just read the paper and see what the story is, you know, and there's only 2 or 3 beats being covered, and it's basically what are the contingency plans? You know, what are the contingency plans for this sport, that sport, this sport, and that sport? A little bit of what might have been, a little bit of you know, what's still to come or what was left out, like the Aztecs and things like that. And then we got some really fun stuff they're talking about, and I thought. We talked about backstage a little bit, but Kirk Kinney ran the brackets, right, for the baseball movies, Steve, and for the sports movies. And I was really bummed. You know, I thought Bang the Drum Slowly got matched up against The Natural in the first round, and Bang the Drum Slowly could have easily been a higher seed. I mean, you know, a fictional story that reigned true, and, you know, one of my favorites. Adam, did you fill out the bracket for the best sports movie?
No, but one of my favorites, and you know, is Brian's song.
Oh my gosh!
A speech at the end that always just gets me. You know, I don't cry, you know, very often in a lot of things, but that just, you know, when the speech is given about Brian Piccolo and, you know, whatnot, and it's just real, yeah.
That's the number 7 guy cry movie of all time, Brian's song. But I'm talking about the 1973 version of Brian's song, the first made-for-TV Brian's song, not the second one, which wasn't as good as the first one.
Right, yeah. But no, I didn't fill out the movie. I kept tabs on it that I thought was interesting. You know, we all have our favorites. I saw people put in Field of Dreams, of course. Rudy, of course, Hoosiers. I mean, that's one of my favorites.
Steve,
Hoosiers.
come on, throw some in there.
Oh, okay. I mean, I do. I like Field of Dreams. I like The Natural, movies like that. I mean, I love those movies, Bull Durham. But did I fill out the brackets? Nah, because it's just not the NCAA tournament. And you know what? Everybody's got brackets now. It's like, at first, it was kind of like when I saw Kirk Kinney a week or so ago put out a bracket at UT. I'm like, that's kind of, and now it's kind of like one of those things that, you know, it becomes a fad, and you're kind of like, okay, I've seen this for the 97th. This is the 97th bracket I've seen this week. You know, it's kind of like, is Lawrence Welk or Gunsmoke on TV now?
Well,
you know,
I follow anything that Kirk Kinney does, and I think it's just anything he does is great. I wouldn't have liked reading anybody else's brackets but Kirk's. I was, you know, hey, guy's like my idol. You know, I was like his backup paper boy in La Mesa growing up, and you know, just followed him throughout my whole career. I just, you know, that's my guy.
Well, and then you look at what KSI is doing with the preps and their brackets, and you know the prep teams of the decade or whatever they're doing. I mean, that's really interesting.
Yeah, I did see that. I saw the. I don't know the guy's name on Twitter, but everybody follows him. He talks a lot about San Diego football, and you know,
Dago football, yeah.
What is that? Who is that? Yeah, the all-decade team.
Dago football, yeah.
Thought it was a pretty good. Steve, what? Is Steve frozen on us, Adam?
I think so.
Oh, we'll bring him back and come back in. It's his show. So, okay, well, while he's gone, Steve might have to log on. If you're still watching, log on and come back in, and we'll have to pop him in, or we might have to finish the show without him.
There we go.
Hey, what I was going to say, Moni, the reason you saw me looking around, maybe? Yeah. The reason I was looking around, you started talking about Kirk Kinney.
Yeah.
Okay, I've got some pictures in my room here. You can see in the back. I was looking for one in particular. 1984, Kurt Kenny and I both lived in La Mesa, and a lady came running through there with the Olympic torch, because obviously the Olympics were in LA.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
There's a picture in here somewhere, and Kirk should have a picture. We took each other's picture holding the Olympic torch for the 1984 Olympics in LA, and I mean, as I said, I've got some pictures here from all around the world and all. We've really been blessed to do a lot of traveling. But my gosh, a picture right now in my backyard in La Mesa at the time, holding the Olympic torch, that was just really,
How far did you live from Kirk?
Not sure. Well,
Okay.
I didn't know exactly where Kirk. We happened to meet back over where it used to be, like, you remember where El Torito was in La Mesa?
Yes.
Or maybe still is over there. I think it's a 99-cent store over there now. But anyway, that's where we just happened to run into each other. We took each other's picture holding that Olympic torch back in 1984. And as I say, for me, that was one of the coolest things ever.
I spent many days hanging out with Kirk as he taught me the right way to fold the afternoon paper. While he whittled around on his bike, and he stopped to play us in basketball. We tried to play him 4-on-1, and Kirk would beat us. We had 4 little guys going up against Kirk, and Kirk would beat us. That's what you talk about in the middle of a global pandemic. But yeah. Anyway, Adam, what about the other list I saw from Braden? Oh, Steve's going to fix it. The other list I saw from Braden, I think you had some comments on, was ranking of Mexican food places. I think it was through the county, though, and not just the East County.
That was the one that
maybe
that was the one that Dago Football put out, and we were talking about it, and Braden had kind of answered. I said, well, you don't come. I said I replied saying, well, you don't come deep into East County at all. You know, you got to come out in the Santee to a place called Ensenada. Up on Mass. I mean, it's really good. The gal who owns it, Maria Audi, she does a phenomenal job in her little restaurant there.
Well, when you stay up as late as I do, Steve, you just usually end up with sombreros or Santanas, because I'm up in the middle of the night. But
Right.
I saw some other ones on that list that I like Sayulitas. Was pretty good. The Taco del Gordo, right, was on the list. Was number 1, probably, right?
Hey, last night I went to the Alpine Taco Shop up here in beautiful downtown Alpine. They're not bad either. There's that. There's a place called Marietta's. It's funny, not a lot of restaurants up here in Alpine, and obviously it's all takeout now, but good ones. And it's funny, too, you're talking about Braden. I'll give you a secret. If you want to find Braden after we do a high school football game Friday night on 97.3 The Fan, you know, Adam, you go to Beef and Bun up there in Fletcher Hills. That's where you'll find him. And speaking of Braden, I'm going to try to – he's not I hope he's – boy. But I'm going to try to hold him to this. I mean, we're hopefully, if and when the season gets going this year with 97.3 The Fan, I do statistics for him and Coach Quintera. I think they really want to do a game at El Cap and a game at Santana. We're hoping to do a playoff game at Santana last year, and it didn't work. So hopefully we'll go out there this year. And El Cap, hopefully my vaqueros are better this year, because the issue we always have with them, if you start off 1-4, we're just not going to do the game. So hopefully either A, El Cap gets off to a decent start, or B, we start out at El Cap in week 1 or 2. But I'm
praying there will be football. Praying, literally praying every day.
And let me ask you guys a question. Speaking of football, I don't know about this, but okay, could you play high school football without fans, or basically every player maybe gets 4 tickets, 2 for your parents and 2 for your buddies? Is that a possibility?
Well, the proposed plan for spring sports originally, was going to be no fans except for maybe, and then they limited it to maybe 2 family members or so. The first proposed plan was no fans except for essential staff, including us media, would be allowed at the game. And then I heard they tweaked it a little bit, that possibly maybe 1 or 2 family members per person, maybe, and that was it.
And what about sidelines? I mean, cheerleaders, would they be allowed to be there? What about, you're going to have the chain gangs. You're going to have, the staff that's there.
Oh, no, that's the essential staff that would be allowed, yeah.
I think you go ahead.
Cheerleaders will be allowed, because I think there's going to be something like that. Because again, the only thing that really scares me about an empty stadium, I'm sorry, I'm going to get to you in a second. One thing I heard in 2015 when they had a Major League Baseball game in Baltimore without fans. Tim Kirchin of ESPN interviewed a player after the game, a catcher, and the catcher said it was really weird. He said one of the weirdest things was I could actually hear the announcements in the press box. Alan Paul up in the bullpen and Ramon Scott on deck. Yeah, I'm sorry, Moni, go ahead. I'm sorry, your floor.
Well, good thing they weren't playing the Astros, I guess. Huh?
Yeah. They'd be the happiest team alive if there's no fans, because they wouldn't get all the what they're going to get.
I guess I'll just try to wrap it up just by trying to put a spin of optimism on this. I know I was a little dark there in the beginning, but this is going to be just a terrible, terrible time this month. But if you look at the way things could ramp up, I think local sports is going to be the way to go, that people are going to kind of rally around their local teams. I think it could be just in time for football season, because once we get into summer, hopefully most of the scientific stuff is right about flattening the curve, still enduring some pain, but get things rolling maybe by the end of summer, that we can get back to some of the things that we do. And I think high school football might be a big part of that around the country.
I heard an interview the other day on the Scott Van Pelt show with Brian Kelly of Notre Dame. And Brian Kelly said they got to at least know by July 1st. Mm-hmm. July 1st. Now, he said that trainers and other people are saying 8 to 12 weeks, but he said his date was July the 1st for college football.
Yeah, and Adam, as you know, basically, I heard that interview. Basically, the way he drew it out, that's like 8 weeks before the season. He basically said 4 weeks of weight training with the trainers and all that, and then 4 weeks of the normal 4 weeks of spring practice for the first game. So, and that's an interesting question too. Going back to what Kirk Herbstreit said, Herbie, about he didn't think there'd be a college football season, because I think the logistics are a lot harder in college. Because like we said earlier, the pros could go out in the middle of nowhere and have a season and make it a TV-only game and get their money. But I can't do that in colleges because, again, you're talking a lot more. You're talking hundreds of teams as opposed to 30 teams, and just every team's got its. You can't take all the college football teams and put them in one place, because theoretically these are student athletes, and if you're playing for San Diego State, you better be attending San Diego State.
Right.
Yeah, we can go on about that the whole time, really. I mean, I get us so off target sometimes with some of the things I'm saying, but really the nuts and bolts of it is really what holds it all together when you're talking about how much time the kids are missing right now, kids and professionals, this little chunk of their careers. This is nothing. We got a lot of problems. There's a lot going on, and we're very, very sad about it. But, these lives are being affected, that their schools being affected. Look at even top-notch players who are in maybe past their prime, old guys, old superstars of certain sports that maybe had one last chance to win the world championship, and maybe will be denied that opportunity. Not that they wouldn't come back again and try it again in the next season, but maybe you're only at that one level. Same for some of these championship teams that we've talked about over the last few weeks. You might only be at that one championship level. It's a lot has to do with talent, but a lot has to do with chemistry, and a lot has to do with, all of that gelling at one time together. And I'll leave you with what I thought was the most important piece of news that maybe it got overlooked. This relates to COVID, Steve and Adam, but I think it's the most important news that came out today about this whole thing, and why I predict that we can be on track for a football season, and that is immediate testing, the 5 to 15-minute result test. Because many people quarantined. Steve, I'm sure you've had the conversation with your wife. As many people who are known to have COVID in quarantine as fast as possible, it's still going to ripple through the citizenship for months to come. But you can get someone who has it out of circulation for 2 weeks. These easy, simple tests, it's the most important thing that's happened throughout this whole thing, and I think is going to lead us kind of to the road to recovery. I'm just a guy on Dolan's Dugout in a box. Poker dealer / sports writer, but that's what I think is going to happen. And I was excited when I heard it. I think that was the best COVID news that we've had all week.
Yeah, and Moni, as you know, and I've said every week, I mean, for people, you've seen the stories in newspapers, all on TV, radio. It's true that doctors and nurses now do not have the medical supplies they need. I mean, as far as masks and all. I mean, I saw an interview the other day on ABC News with a nurse in Chicago, and she said nurses are terrified. And I can tell you, yes, that's true. Because again, a basic thing that can happen, for instance, you can do surgery on a patient today that's not showing any signs. Tomorrow they show signs of it. You did surgery on them today without the proper medical attention. Tomorrow they get the virus, and now guess who else has it? The 6 people who were in surgery with them, and now your hospital's down 6 people for at least 2 weeks. So those are the type things that, again, I don't want to go on about it, but unless you're in the medical field, those are the type things that are happening behind the scenes that need to get out there more. Because, again, I will be honest, I'm going to go way off base here, but I get really frustrated when I read, like, for instance, some of these people that are in management, all hospitals will say, well, our employees have all the equipment they need. Well, if that be the case, then you get out there with the equipment they're working with, and then you prove it. It's easy for me to say, Adam, it should be it shouldn't be hard for you to lift 500 pounds. Moni, it shouldn't be hard for you to run 50 miles. I can say it's easy for you, but what about me? It's always easier to tell somebody else that, oh, it's not that big a deal, but it is that big a deal.
Yeah, I think a lot's being done. I think there's some catch up to do still in that area. Obviously, if there's any kind of noise at all, with people saying that, then there is a problem. But I think there's a lot of people working on it 24/7 right now, more than we can even comprehend right now. And we're saving ourselves. There's some incredible people, especially those frontline people that we now call them. I mean, Alicia Keys wrote that awesome song yesterday during that concert for the fundraising concert they had on the Fox networks, writing about those frontliners, first responders, just some poignant words that we can live by right now. At least, through April now, April for sure, and then we'll revisit it again. And probably not going to like the result, but we're going to get this going. We're going to get this going real quick. I really feel that way.
Yes, sir. Well,
thanks to those people, those medical professionals, scientists, all those people working the pipelines, people working the food chains, going to fix it all. They're going to fix it all. America's going to fix a lot of it and help out those abroad. There's been great countries doing their own things, but we're going to help them too. You can bet on it.
Times like this always bring us all together. I mean, and again, I'm going to just say one more thing. This is just me again. I would appreciate, like on Facebook, I've really backed off on it because I'm just getting tired of everybody's political opinions. I've always said political opinions are like rear ends. We all have them. And they all stink to one extent or another. So I think, really, I think people need to get off the politics and let's pull together and get this thing solved, because that's the only way you do it is by pulling together.
Yeah. Adam, anything else, brother?
No, I mean, like I said, Friday, it's going to be the date. I mean, we'll see what happens.
Okay, yeah. Let me just add then, Adam, sorry to cut you off, that Steve, we're going to plan on, maybe if there's a little bit of breaking news, we're going to analyze it. We might do something Friday, be on the lookout through our East County networks with Adam and I, get that information to you. If there's any real breaking news, we might have John Mappy join us. I don't know if it's deemed if it's important enough. I think we know what the news is going to be, but we'll see what happens.
Well,
Adam.
And then I'd like to talk to somebody more about the eligibility thing. With them, with the NC2A. Coming down with that decision today and everything. If we talk, get a guest on for next week or whatever, whether it be one of our local coaches who does the recruiting or whatever. I mean, I think that would be really interesting, because that's
a lot of people are interested. Believe me.
Yeah. I mean, because like we said earlier, there's the ramifications again. Adam, if you're the senior who gets the extra year to come back at San Diego State, but Ramon, you're the senior in high school who's going to San Diego State next year, It's interesting because, again, Adam's going to have to realize that he might have to give up part of the scholarship money for you coming in next year, but you're going to have to realize you may have to wait next year to play because the seniors are sticking around for another year that would have gone. They're taking your position. So there's a lot of those types of nuances.
Yeah,
and it's unfold.
Yeah, because I heard tonight when I was watching the KOSI news, Brandon Stone was talking. They were talking about the assistance fund possibly paying for some of these athletes for next year.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. There's just a whole lot out there because, as you know, the NCAA without the basketball tournament, each school's getting a lot less money. I think in San Diego State's case, I think they get about $800 less than they would have. But of course, then you get into, and I know we're kind of going overtime here, but then you get into the thing where right before everything broke, right before everything stopped, San Diego State sent out things to their season ticket holders that basketball season tickets are going up like for courtside seats 34% next year. You better hope they're not bringing in. Better hope they're bringing in the Arizonas and the teams like that of the world, and not the Biolas and that.
From what I was reading, it wasn't just the court side; it was all their seats. They're raising it up. Raising them a certain price.
But courtside, I think, are going up the most. I believe they were going up 34%.
Yeah, something like that.
But again, when you look at their schedule, man, when you're charging people that much money, and again, your non-conference schedule, and it's getting harder too. It's conferences like the Pac-12 playing 20 conference games now. Their teams have fewer non-conference, so it's going to be harder to get an Arizona or an Arizona State or an Oregon or Washington or Washington State on your schedule now.
Yeah.
Hey, a couple more recovery stimulus packages and everything's going to go up 20% once the economy gets rolling again.
Right.
Gas will be $5 and tickets to a game going to be at $150.
Yeah, no kidding. And again, with the Aztecs too, I mean, and not to get into it, if Malachi Flynn does not come back next year, which I don't think he will, I think he'll go to the NBA. It's not necessarily going to be a rebuilding season, but it's going to be tough to go 30-2 with, or especially without him. So those issues out there. But again, they're just, as we've been talking, it's just funny right now. All we can do is speculate. But what I'm hoping for pretty soon is the real news, rather than speculating. This is when it's going to start. This is how it's going to play out. I can't wait for it to all play out. But again, only when it's safe.
Yeah.
Yeah. What can we say? God bless everyone. We're back hopefully next Friday or next week, and just take it one day at a time. Yes, sir. I mean, as they say, when a baseball player or an athlete gets hurt, I always hear the announcement on the PA system. They'll say so-and-so, sore shoulder, he's day-to-day. We are all day-to-day, let's face it. And, God bless everybody as we go day-to-day. And hang in there. Things are going to get better. I mean, this is the worst any of us have seen in our lifetime. But you know what? I mean, there were people that, my mother-in-law was born the year of the Great Depression and all. So it is tough right now, but tough times sometimes, in the end. I mean, again, it's hard to see now, but in the end, maybe everybody pulls together, and that would be a great thing. Again, get rid of the political venom and let's all pull together. And in the future, when we're getting a little older, they'll say, "Hey, do you remember the COVID-19 pandemic? Were you around for that?" And I'll say, "Yeah, that sucked." Yeah. Do you want to talk about it? No.
Right.
Yeah. So hopefully everyone's doing good out there.
Well, again, if I could, if you don't have anything else, just want to close the show. Again, want to thank so much on Dolan's Dugout. This is Steve Dolan. I want to thank so much Adam Paul for being with us each week, and Ramon Scott for doing all the technical stuff too, because I have no clue what you do. But thanks so much for getting us on the air each week, because if you ever ask me to do what you do, we ain't going on. How cutting edge we are, Steve. Everybody's doing things now like the Zoom. You ever go in these Zoom chats now and you got like 20 people around you and you shoot into another room and you got 6 people in a side room? Everybody's going to be doing it soon. So, all right. For Steve Dolan, Adam Paul, I'm Ramon Scott. Thank you for joining us. Thank you.